On a quiet autumn morning, a ginkgo tree can look almost unreal. Its fan-shaped leaves turn bright gold, and then, sometimes within a remarkably short period, much of the tree seems to let them go at once. The tree itself tells an even stranger story. Ginkgo biloba is the only surviving species in its entire plant family, a lineage that reaches deep into Earth's past. That is why botanists often call it a living fossil. It survived enormous changes in climate and ecosystems while retaining a form remarkably recognizable today. And then there is the leaf. For decades, ginkgo leaf extract has been marketed around the world as a natural way to support memory, concentration, and the aging brain. But here is the fascinating part. The oldest story about this tree is not necessarily the strongest evidence for what its leaf can do. Ginkgo has been studied extensively in humans. The National Institutes of Health's National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health says there is still no conclusive evidence that ginkgo can prevent or slow dementia or age-related cognitive decline. That may sound like the end of the story. It isn't. Because ginkgo presents one of the more interesting contradictions in herbal research. A plant with a remarkable history, a chemically complex leaf, some clinical findings suggesting possible benefits for symptoms in certain people with dementia, and at the same time, large trials showing that it does not prevent dementia from developing. The difference matters. The strongest example is the Ginkgo Evaluation of Memory Study, known as GEM. More than 3,000 adults aged 75 and older took either ginkgo or placebo. The dose was 240 milligrams per day, and participants were followed for roughly 6 years. Ginkgo did not reduce the development of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. It also did not slow cognitive decline in the way many people had hoped. Stop and think about that number. More than 3,000 older adults, around 6 years of observation, and no protective effect against developing dementia. So why does this ancient leaf remain so fascinating? Because preventing dementia and potentially influencing symptoms in someone who already has cognitive impairment are two very different questions. Ginkgo's leaves are unlike the leaves of most familiar garden trees. They are fan-shaped, often divided into two lobes, with veins that spread outward rather than forming the branching network many people expect from ordinary broadleaf plants. In autumn, the green disappears, and the entire crown can become a striking yellow gold. Inside those leaves are compounds that have made ginkgo a major subject of botanical and pharmacological research. European regulators recognize medicinal preparations made from ginkgo leaf, including standardized dry extracts. The European Medicines Agency notes that the precise way ginkgo may act in dementia is not completely understood, but proposed mechanisms include effects related to blood flow and protection against oxidative stress. That word, standardized, is important. A handful of leaves from a tree in your yard is not automatically equivalent to the extract used in a clinical trial. Researchers may study a defined preparation with controlled amounts of particular constituents. A supplement purchased from a store can differ in formulation, extraction, concentration, and quality. The NICE specifically warns that supplements may differ from the products tested in research. The contradiction is simple. Ginkgo can be scientifically interesting without being a proven dementia prevention treatment. Some reviews of clinical trials have reported modest improvements in cognitive symptoms among people with dementia, particularly with certain standardized extracts and doses. Other analyses have found inconsistent results, and the evidence is not strong enough to say that ginkgo reliably prevents cognitive decline in healthy older adults. That distinction is exactly where responsible plant research separates itself from advertising. A traditional reputation can tell scientists where to look. It cannot tell them what the final answer will be. And ginkgo has another reason for attracting attention. Its biology is extraordinary. It is not simply an old tree. It is a tree that has adapted to difficult environments remarkably well. Extension specialists note that mature ginkgo can tolerate urban conditions, air pollution, heat, drought once established, and a broad range of soils, although good drainage remains important. The same tree that became a symbol of endurance also became associated with the human desire to preserve something fragile, memory. But the irony is worth remembering. A tree can survive for centuries. That does not mean its leaf can guarantee that a human brain will do the same. If you are growing ginkgo for the tree itself, the first thing to understand is that patience is part of the bargain. This is not a small herb that disappears at the end of the season. A mature ginkgo can become a large landscape tree, commonly reaching roughly 50 to 80 feet in height, depending on conditions and cultivar. Give it plenty of sunlight and choose soil that drains well. Ginkgo tolerates a surprisingly broad range of soil conditions, but consistently waterlogged ground is a poor choice. Once established, the tree is considerably more drought-tolerant than many people expect. If you are planting one primarily as a landscape tree, cultivar selection matters. Ginkgo trees are male or female. Female trees produce fleshy seed coverings that become notorious in autumn for their unpleasant smell when they fall and break open. Named male cultivars are therefore commonly preferred for streets and residential landscapes. If the goal is simply to collect leaves for botanical study, identification, or non-medicinal household purposes, autumn gives you the easiest visual signal. Watch the foliage as it changes from green toward its characteristic yellow. The leaves can fall rapidly, especially once the tree reaches full autumn color. Collect clean, healthy leaves from a tree that has not been exposed to obvious chemical sprays or roadside contamination. Avoid damaged. For drying, spread the leaves in a clean, dry, well-ventilated location, away from direct moisture. Once completely dry, store them in an airtight container in a cool, dark place, and label the date and source. But there is an important boundary here. Do not assume that home-dried ginkgo leaves are interchangeable with a standardized medicinal extract. That is not how the clinical evidence works. The European Medicines Agency distinguishes between powdered dried leaf and specific dry extracts used in medicinal preparations. So if your interest is memory or cognitive health, copying a supplement study by simply collecting leaves from a backyard tree is not a scientifically equivalent experiment. For an immediately useful step, start with identification rather than consumption. Find a reputable botanical or university extension source. Learn the fan-shaped leaf and its characteristic vein pattern. Photograph the tree through the seasons and record when the leaves change color and fall. That simple habit turns a familiar landscape tree into a small personal field study. And if you are considering a ginkgo supplement for yourself, speak with a healthcare professional first, especially if you take medicines that affect blood clotting. NCCIH notes that ginkgo can increase bleeding risk and may interact with medicines, including anticoagulants such as warfarin. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. There is something almost poetic about the way ginkgo fits into the history of human memory. People have planted these trees near temples, along streets, in parks, and around homes. Their leaves have become symbols of autumn, endurance, and time. And the plant itself carries an extraordinary biological history. Yet the most valuable lesson from ginkgo may not be that an ancient leaf can rescue an aging memory. It may be that nature often gives us a more interesting answer than the one we hoped for. Ginkgo forced researchers to test a beautiful idea. Could a plant with such a long history, such unusual chemistry, and such a strong reputation actually prevent the cognitive decline associated with aging? Large clinical research did not give us that simple victory. But it did give us something better, a clearer distinction between tradition, laboratory science, clinical evidence, and marketing. And that distinction protects people. Someone noticing increasing forgetfulness should not assume that an herbal supplement is the answer. Memory changes can have many causes, and some are treatable. NCCIH specifically advises people not to use complementary approaches as a reason to postpone medical evaluation for significant memory problems. So perhaps the secret of this ancient leaf is not hidden inside a capsule at all. It is in the way the tree teaches us to think. A ginkgo can stand in one place for generations while the people around it change. A child can see the same golden leaves that a grandparent once saw. Seeds can become trees. Trees can become landmarks, and landmarks can become part of a family's memory. That is a kind of preservation no supplement can promise. If you grow ginkgo, grow it for the tree first. Give it sun. Give its roots good drainage. Give it room. Watch the seasons closely, and when those fan-shaped leaves turn gold, remember that you are looking at a plant lineage that has endured for an extraordinary span of Earth's history. We should not expect one ancient leaf to defeat time. We should learn from the plants that have survived it.